Hey, shalom, my brothers and sisters. This brother Amos coming back to you live again with call to action, man. This brother Amos with call to action. Listen, it's another great week, man. It's another great week to be alive and to get focused, get pure, get precise, man. Let's just jump right into this thing here. Because look, we're going back to school. The children are going back to school. Parents, you got to gear up. You got to get right. Because we're missing opportunities in order to really make the difference in our child's lives. Because we don't want to educate ourselves. And I'm a challenge. All this call to action is a challenge to y'all. It's to checking your oil. And to really realize what you represent. You got to realize what you represent. You represent some of the most greatest people on this earth. Black man, black woman, Hispanic man, Hispanic woman. Native man, native woman. Can't nobody take that from us. So now, last week, because this is why I'm gonna have to expand this thing a little for a couple weeks, because y'all need to get this understanding about these mental diagnoses. You know, these mental diagnoses. The DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. Okay. The Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. We're on number 5. And throughout time, mental diagnoses have evolved. By what I mean is this: the criterias have changed. So if something was so potent to be as mental diagnosis, it should stay the same if it's actually something to be grounded on. It's not something that's supposed to be, oh, let's evolve, because so then that means if it has evolved, that means what are you going to do to those who have been diagnosed under the old criteria? Are you going to reevaluate those thousands of people, those tens of thousands of people? No, you're just going to keep the diagnoses. And when somebody gets diagnosed, it's not like they up there for a six month evaluation. It's not like your diagnosis is taken back and saying, no, you outgrew this. So once you're diagnosed, it carries you. That's why it's so important, parents, for you to be focused on understanding how our kids get diagnosed. Because a lot of this criteria that is reached, it's our everyday life. So all of us will be diagnosed with a mental disorder. But the only point is, and it's just very small and very little, that we don't go see the doctors. The doctors meaning the psychiatrists, the therapists, the psychologists. We don't see them. And guess what? Those are the only people who are required and who are legally able to diagnose. Your psychiatrist, your psychologist, and your therapist are the only ones. Not your teacher who's been teaching for 20 years. Not your principal who's been principal for 25 years. Not even your guidance counselor who's been there for 15, 20 years. They're not legally trained. They're not licensed. It's illegal, parents. It is very illegal. Okay, and I really need y'all parents to get this, because we need to be battle tested in this time period, okay? Where everything is watered down. The emotions is everybody's emotional about these things. Okay, so now, because throughout the weeks, we're going to focus on some specific type of diagnoses that I really want y'all to understand. And we got to understand this. So what? For one, because one of the criteria of us of our people, of the Israelites, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American brothers and sisters, we get diagnosed with ADHD at a mass rate. Okay, it's at a mass rate. So what we really need to understand is this. It's not about, it's true, we got to understand why and how. And here are some factors that play into this thing. Okay. When you look at the quote unquote urban city schools, public schools, when you look at the suburban public schools, they're two totally different. They're still separate but equal, quote unquote. Okay. In other words, they're separate and unequal. So check this out. ADHD, more kids, predominantly black kids, will be diagnosed with ADHD and have been diagnosed with ADHD. But they don't take in consideration that the schools are lacking air conditioner, heat. The schools are lacking proper desks and chairs where they're uncomfortable. They're moving, they're breaking. There's an insect problem. It's a hazard in that thing. You don't see that in the suburban schools. And I had the opportunity to live in the both worlds. You don't see that. You don't see that. So now, check this out. Check out some criteria out of the DSM-5 about ADHD. So people with ADHD show a persistent pattern of inattention and or hyperactivity, impulsivity that interferes with functioning and develop. See how smooth that sounds? That sounds good. Now look, inattention. 6 or more symptoms of inattention for children up to age 16 years or 5 or more for adolescents, age 17 years and older and adults. Symptoms of inattention have been present for at least 6 months and they are inappropriate for development. So now that's saying you have to have at least 6 or more symptoms if you're from the age of where you're diagnosed from. It should be after the age of 7, but we know some kids get diagnosed at 3, 4 years old because of the parents were very ignorant, and the schools and the administration was very trifling. So up to 16, you need 6 or more. Up to 17 and older, you need 5 or more. Now think about some of the criteria that this match, and see if there's not a problem. Often fails to give close attention to details and make careless mistakes in schoolwork, at work, or other activities. Often has trouble holding attention on tasks or play activities. Often does not seem to listen when spoken to directly. Often does not follow through on instructions and fails to finish schoolwork, chores, or duties in the workplace. Often has trouble organizing tasks. Often avoids, dislikes, and is reluctant to do tasks. Often loses things. Is often easily distracted. Think about that. That's a lot of us right now who's not diagnosed. And let's take it from here. What about that kid who's just being what about that kid, that younger kid? Because young kids are getting diagnosed with this ADHD. So what about that young kid? He has ADHD because they're not listening. They don't want to play with that toy because they want the toy with the sprinkles, with the illumination. You know what I'm saying? So look how deep that is. That right there, I've seen so many staff. I've been in so many staff meetings on many different levels, and I've seen many adults like that was never diagnosed with ADHD. So what's the problem? The problem is in the criteria, and the problem is also in the parents not realizing that, we got to get this thing together. You understand? So here's my firm suggestion that you need to take as like a law to how you operate this thing here. Because that ADHD, man, once you get diagnosed, that thing is going to carry you. Then it's going to lead you to pills. Then you're going to have to take pills to take some other pills to deal with the symptoms of the pills that you're taking. I worked with a kid in my time who was about 12 years old. He was on 10 different medications. Because there are some doctors that just love to prescribe, that they're known to be prescribers. Known to be prescribers in this field. Big pharma is a big business. And guess what? They don't get challenged. You come in there, you check off thing, boom, check. I've done many assessments throughout my 12 years in this field, 12 plus years in this field. You make assessments, and a lot of the assessments are yes and no. Have you committed suicide? And you're thinking, damn, I'm 35. I mean, have you attempted or thought about suicide? They give you a yes or no. You like, damn, I'm 35, 37 years old. You mark yes because you mark yes because, or you answer yes because when you were 13, you attempted it. But guess what? You made healthy decisions throughout your life in order to overcome that thing. So you marking yes. A person reading it could think like, damn, they feel like that now. You know what I'm saying? So it's these assessments that's really capturing things. Because the biggest part about these criteria with these mental diagnoses are this. You must understand that they have to fit more of a broader category than just being in school or to just being at home. They have to hit the components of school, home, or school or work, home, and in the community. and for a duration of time, a 6 months to a year time period. And that's not true to a lot of these kids. A lot of these kids are hungry. A lot of these kids have weak parenting that they're receiving. A lot of these kids are not getting discipline. So it's not they're acting out because they have ADHD. They're acting out because they have no discipline. And that's a big majority of kids that's being diagnosed. And I strongly suggest parents stop it. Because here's the point. In psychology, the age of reason, they say, is 7. So how is a kid getting diagnosed before 7 if the kid is supposed to age of reason is 7, meaning that the kid comes to his understanding of what he should and should not do at age of 7, according to their logic? So what does that tell us? There's been a lot of malpractice going on in this field. I can't stress that enough. Parents, when your kid is up for evaluation, because listen, I will dare say 70% of 70% of parents and their children will be on the verge or getting tested or assessed for a mental diagnosis by the time they fully complete 12 years of 12. They will at least 70% of parents will have had their kid evaluated or assessed for a mental diagnosis by the time that kid enters school and by the time that kid leaves high school. Because of the parents not understanding, you do not allow your kids to get evaluated by nobody in that school. Because they're not licensed. If they're not a therapist, a psychologist, or a psychiatrist, you don't do it. You don't accept no referral from no teacher, from no counselor, from no principal about your child. You don't do it because guess what? How are they, if they're ill, if they're not legally able to diagnose your kid, how are they even legally able to suggest that what they may meet some criteria? It is illegal. Stop it. Stop allowing your kids to be placed in that. Okay? That's why when your kids come home, ask them who they talk to. Don't just accept them to say good. Say, okay, tell me why is it good? Tell me what happened when it's good. What does it mean to be good? Okay, what does it mean to be bad? Okay, what does it mean to be okay? Or in the middle? Is there a middle? You got to expand on things for kids. So your mom or dad, I talked to I talked to this one lady, whose son or whose daughter, Miss Willingsburg. Yeah, she was asking me a bunch of questions. Like what questions? About my childhood and, my parenting life and what my parents and what I do for fun and things. Okay. Then you call up the next day, even if it's not nothing, you find out who Miss Willingsburg is. And you start showing up. You start getting weekly reports for your kid. You parents, you start getting weekly reports from your school, from your kid's school. And look, because you got to keep paper trails. You get it from the actual teacher. You get it from, you email a teacher, you CC their principal, you CC the vice principal. And sometimes you can even CC the superintendent. Because there's a lot of stuff that go on that the superintendent don't know about. And there's a lot of stuff that go on that the superintendent know about, but he's not checking it. So you just making a paper trail. Because guess what? Don't matter if the teachers get mad. They're going to have to do their job, especially when it comes to your kid. Stop being a coward. You speak up on everything else. Speak up for your kid. And that's how you do it. A lot of y'all kids are being misdiagnosed. I would dare say that. I will stand the test of time. I will stand up and be right with this. A lot of y'all kids are misdiagnosed because you're failing to lack. You're lacking as a parent. Stop playing games with this. Okay? Stop. Stop letting your kids talk to people and not know who they talking to. Okay? When your kid, listen. For example, a lot of times your kid, for example, when you're up there for parent-teacher conference, always go. Because they have the school counselors, They have the therapist there. They have everybody there. They have the principal there. They have everybody there. So you need to get a feel for who's who and what's what. Open houses, go. You know what I'm saying? Be on top of this thing. Because these criteria that I have right now is very serious. These diagnoses of a criteria, they're very serious. Let me see if I can pull something else, because I got a whole shebang on these criteria real quick, because especially when it comes to all, okay, we got something on depression. No, we don't want to do depression. I don't want to do depression right now. I think I do. I think I do. Because I just share. See? No, I got y'all next time. But this is what I'm gonna say. Because there's a couple I want. Should I do that one? Nah, I ain't gonna do that one. Listen, I ain't gonna do that one just yet, because that's one where I want to spend time and I want to really expand on. But the biggest thing, I'm trying to warm that up, because here's the thing: these mental diagnoses need to be taken more serious. A lot of them are wrong, and a lot of people are misdiagnosed, because you got to think about this. We're on the 5th edition right now. That means throughout, from when it started to now, there has been several hundreds of changes. New additions and subtractions. So what that tells us is, like I said, there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who are diagnosed that still has not been updated on the new criterias to be either removed or to readjust it. So if your kid gets diagnosed, that's going to carry them throughout their life. That's on their medical records. Okay, and guess what? We don't own our medical records. That's why when we want them, we got to go buy them. We got to go through a process. We don't own our medical records. Okay, there's a lot of things y'all got to understand with these laws and how they're made. So a lot of what we do, parents, be sharper. Your teacher, your school, your kids' teachers, their counselors, their principals, they cannot tell your kid nothing. They can't tell you nothing about no diagnoses or no suggestions towards it. It's illegal. It's illegal. If the specific therapist, now mind you, they do a lot of backdoor. Hey, they go to the therapist. Hey, take a look at such and such. That's why when y'all sometimes in y'all behavioral meetings as parents with IEPs, they have the therapist there. And sometimes, guess what? The therapist does most of the talking. Start taking notice. But listen, I don't try to be long with this. I don't try to be long. But I want y'all to really just start to really get the flow of things in. Because we're gonna take a few weeks to really peel this onion. Y'all gonna learn some things. Y'all gonna learn how to deal with these schools. Y'all gonna learn y'all gonna learn some laws in regards to the mental health. And we're gonna chop this thing right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, I'm Brother Amos. Listen, we doing what's right. With that, shalom.